Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for Connecting with Your Readers. My name is Lauren Charles and I'll be the moderator today. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we really get going. First is that this entire presentation is going to be recorded, so if at any time you need to jump off and you need to go run some errands or anything else you have going on, you can always come back and log in exactly like you did today and watch the rest of the presentation. Along those lines, we also have a printable version of the slide deck that our speakers will be using today. You'll see that on the left-hand side of your screen. So again, please feel free to print that out and take notes or use it with any of your teammates, anything like that. If at any point, if it's useful to you, that is why we want to hand it out. The other thing is at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. And again, if at any point during the presentation you have any questions for either our presentation, either our presenters or our Spark team, we have a bunch of people here who are eager to help you. So just feel free to use that at any point during the presentation, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. It is live response, though, so we hope that you can engage on that level. We also will be live tweeting today's webinar, so you'll see on the right-hand side, you can log into your Twitter, you can see what we're tweeting, and then you can join in the conversation. You'll see some hashtags already in there. We also encourage you to use the hashtag Ingram Insights, and you can tweet at both of our presenters as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our wonderful presenters who are going to talk about social media and blogging.
Thank you. Thanks, Lauren. Hi, I am Mary Laura Philpott. I'm really excited to be here. I'm very grateful to Ingram for having us. I am the author of a book called Penguins with People Problems, which we will take a look at later. It's just kind of a weird little book. And I'm also the social media director for an independent bookstore in Nashville called Parnassus Books, which gives me another sort of insight into social media. And I'm a columnist for a variety of publications, most regularly the New York Times, sometimes the Huffington Post, the Toast, Us Weekly, where I do fashion police, and that kind of thing. Before I keep going, I want to introduce a very good friend of mine who I just think is hysterical and very smart, Jerry Mahoney. Jerry, would you introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you, Mary Laura. I don't think I can top your introduction, but of me. But I am a blogger at a site called mommyman.com, and I then wrote a memoir based on that blog called Mommy Man: How I Went from Mild-Mannered Geek to Gay Super Dad, which came out last year. And I've had columns reprinted on a bunch of sites from the New York Times, the Today Show. I've been on Huffington Post Live a few times, and I'm also a stay-home dad.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we're going to talk to Jerry a little bit more in a minute, but I want to kind of set up what we're talking about and why. I am one of those people who loves social media. I have not become cynical about it yet. I think it's fun. I think it is useful. And whenever I do talk to somebody who gives me a little eye roll about it, I say, well, okay, do you already have all the attention for whatever your business is that you want? If you're a writer, do you have all the readers you want? If you're a company, do you have all the customers you want? Because if you do, then never mind. But typically the answer to that is no. I don't have all the customers or all the readers I want. So that's why social media can be a good business thing. One of sort of the outdated ideas of the past from back in the Field of Dreams days is if you build it, they will come, which I guess if you translated that to writing, it would be, if you write it, they will buy it, which just isn't true unless they, the readers, know that your book is there. So there's Kevin Costner. So one of the analogies I like to give when I'm talking about social media is think back to when the Olympics are on TV every 2 years. Think of yourself, an author, as an Olympic athlete. Let's say you do downhill skiing. Some people are going to watch your race because they're standing on the mountain where you're racing. They're right there live as it's happening. More people, most people really, are going to watch it remotely because they've heard something about it. Those people who watch it remotely will share clips of your race on social media and create new fans who are then going to tune in for your next race. That's how you kind of build a following. If you translate that to writing, some people are going to buy your book because they were right there when you were writing it, like your mom. My mom bought 20 copies, and it was really sweet. Most people are going to buy the book because they've heard about it somewhere. They don't personally know you, but they've heard that there's a book. Those people will then post on social media about the book, a clip from it or an article about it or a picture. Other people will see that, become your fans, also buy your book, and then when you write your next book, those people are already fans of your writing or your art, and they're ready to show up and buy it. And if you go back to the Olympic athlete analogy for a minute, when you watch it on TV and there are all the personal profiles of Matt Lauer and the various anchors talking about the backstories of all the athletes, there's a reason that they do that in addition to just filling airtime. People root for people, and people care about people. And if you develop a following of human beings who know that you are the human being behind your product or your book, they're going to root for you, and they're going to tell their friends, and that's how audiences happen. And the key to all that, of course, or what we're talking about today anyway, is social media and blogging, which you can also kind of think of as your own free promotion, where you control who you're promoting to and you control the audience, and it's pretty much free. So all of that said, just kind of setting up what it is we're talking about, I would love to turn it over to Jerry and let him tell everybody his story. Later, if we have time, I might tell you the story of how I met Jerry, but first I want you to hear how his book came to be. So, Jerry, will you take over for us?
I will absolutely take over, and I want to warn you that the slide you're currently looking at is full of spoilers for my story, but we're going to soldier on anyway. I will give the brief version of my story. The longer version, of course, is in my book, which I've already mentioned, Mommy Man, How I Went from Mild Mannered Geek to Gay Super Dad, and it's widely available, and I would highly recommend picking it up, but I won't plug it anymore. So my story is basically when my husband and I decided that we wanted to have kids, we knew that as a gay couple that there were a variety of different ways we could go about it, adoption, fostering, kidnapping, but we wanted to keep it legal and simple and as emotionally uncomplicated as possible. And we hit upon the idea of surrogacy, which is becoming more and more common. I know a lot of people have heard about it. And we thought about it, and we weren't quite sure exactly how to go about it. It seemed just, even more complicated than some of the other ways. And then my husband's sister, whose name is Susie, came to us and said, look, if you guys are serious about this and you need an egg donor, I'd be happy to donate an egg. Which changed everything, because suddenly, and obviously, if she was going to be the egg donor, that meant that I would be donating the other part of the equation. And I say that, just because people do get confused, not because I enjoy talking about my sperm to complete strangers, which I'm now doing, but because people hear brother and sister having a baby together, and they go, wait, that's incest, you can't do that, they'll have six-headed freak babies, and yeah, that's why we didn't do that. So it was, I'm not related to the egg donor, she's not related to me, but together we had a baby who was a little bit me and a little bit of my husband, or we would be able to. So as we went through this process, we found out that my husband's sister, who was young and unattached and wanted to have kids someday but didn't have kids yet, was not nearly as fertile as she should have been at her age, and would someday probably have a lot of problems having a baby, which was devastating to all of us. But the doctor, by the time we figured this out, we had already harvested the eggs, and he said, well, I'd like to see whether you can get pregnant or not with her eggs. So we went forward with the embryo transfer into a surrogate who was a separate woman who we found through an agency. And amazingly, she became pregnant with twins. And the rest of the story is a wonderful, happy ending. We became dads to healthy twins, a boy and a girl, who are now just turned 6 years old last week. And my sister-in-law, thankfully, also ended up having a baby of her own, quite by accident, right after she had moved in with her boyfriend. They were using protection and everything, and it was one of those things that this baby just really, really needed to be born, and we are very glad that she was, because she's a wonderful kid. And so it was a happy ending for everybody, and, as a writer, I'm somebody who's always kind of looking for a great story to tell, And suddenly, I had never really thought about writing a memoir before, but suddenly I thought, wow, I've got a great story to tell. It happened to me. And so I wrote it first as a modern love column for the New York Times, which you can see here. I've always been a fan of the modern love column and always wanted to be in it and never really thought I had a good enough story. And suddenly I had a story that was very modern and very loving, and wrote it up and sent it in, and they printed it, which was fantastic. And so I kind of thought, okay, so many book deals have come out of the modern love column. Now I'll just sit back and wait for publishers and agents to beat down my door. And it didn't happen because it's not that simple. You really do have to do a lot of work yourself. And so as somebody who I've been a screenwriter and done a lot of writing on my own, suddenly thought, okay, I need to find out how to go about writing a book. And so I looked into how to write a book proposal, which is a long and complicated process. My proposal ended up being about 100 pages. And I know a lot of people listening to this maybe aren't interested in traditional publishing and get to skip this step, and that is definitely one of the benefits of self-publishing, is not having to do a book proposal. Because it's long and complicated. You write a bio about yourself. You write a chapter-by-chapter synopsis of what you expect to happen in the book. And you also write a marketing plan, which is kind of what we're talking about today, because publishers really, as I discovered, want to know what is your Twitter following, what is your online presence, how many people are on your Facebook page, how many likes do you have, what kind of social media presence do you have. And I really didn't have that. So I thought, well, I'm just going to focus on the writing, write really good sample chapters, and include them. And I then sent this out, just random query, to a bunch of agents who had done some stuff that I admired, and amazingly found an agent pretty quickly who really responded to my story, read the New York Times column and loved it, read the proposal and loved it, and said, okay, great, let's go sell this book. So she took the proposal out to a bunch of places, and it, short version, did not sell, which was really upsetting to me, but also didn't deter me from wanting to write the book at all, because I said, you know what, this is a great story, and I know it's going to find an audience someday when I am able to actually sit down and write the whole thing. So I had a long talk with my agent about it, and she said, well, how long is it going to take you to write this book now? And I said, well, I'm a stay-home dad. I've got young twins who nap for maybe an hour and a half a day if I'm lucky. So it's probably going to take me about 2 years to write this entire book, of when they're napping and when they're asleep at night and whenever I can. And so she said, okay, well, if you're going to take 2 years to write this book, the best thing you can do in that time is use that 2 years to build your online profile. And I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. What's an online profile? And she said, well, the first thing you could start with is a blog. And I thought about that, and I said, well, I used to have a blog, actually. A long time ago, I had just in the heyday of blogging, when kind of everybody had a blog, I'm like, I'm everybody, I should have a blog. And I started blogging just, my random thoughts about, like, I bought a new pair of jeans today, and here's the funny thing the salesperson said to me, and that kind of stuff. And, it was random, and I had fun doing it, and I, found a couple of people who thought that I was funny and followed me, and that was kind of all there was to it. And the blog didn't really have any focus, and it kind of went away when I got bored with it. But I thought, well, okay, I'll just start up the blog again. And now I had a whole new perspective on life and a new angle. And I thought, okay, well, I can write about what my life is like now as a gay dad to young twins born through gestational surrogacy. That's something I hadn't really seen out there. So I started my blog, and I called it Mommy Man, and I started getting followers. And the amazing thing was, so much had changed since when I was first blogging. That now, there it is, there's my blog, Mommy Man. Now I noticed, because of Facebook didn't exist when I was first blogging, I would write a post, and I would put it up on Facebook, and I wouldn't just get the same 3 or 4 people who read all my posts saying, hey, great post, man, will you read my post now? I would get friends and family members who I wouldn't have thought to send it to saying, wow, this is great. I didn't really know about this. This is really funny, or whatever, interesting perspective. And then they would share it to their friends. And then those strangers to me would share it to other strangers. And suddenly I would start getting comments and feedback from people who I'd never heard of. And it was amazing how, the spread could exponentially increase with every post that I wrote. And then those people would sign on and subscribe to the blog, the people who liked my post. And then they would start getting all the posts. And suddenly I could see exactly how much, how far my posts were reaching and who exactly was reading them and what they were like and what kind of people were engaged enough to respond and write emails. And so, I realized my agent had made a great point. Like, you can really build up quite a big social media influence without, I don't want to say without putting in work, because it's definitely work, but sometimes it's as simple as writing a great post with a good headline and putting it on your social media and then just letting everybody else do the work for you. And so anyway, long story short, too late. After 2 years, I did have my book finished. I had my manuscript. I sent it to my agent, and she sent it out to people, to editors, and this time it sold. Because she included this section that listed exactly how many Twitter followers I had, how many blog followers I had, and so on. And publishers thought, well, great, he's got on a platform now. This is really going to help us sell the book. And so the publisher that bought the book was really excited about it and really supportive. And I got to write the blog post I'd always wanted to write. Hey, everyone, it's the greatest, most thrilling post ever with huge news. Wow, my book is going to be published. And immediately I started getting comments, not just from my mom and my sister and the people I would expect, but from total strangers who had come to know me over the last couple of years of me blogging, saying, wow, this is so exciting. We're so happy for you. I can't wait to read the book. And I thought, this is great. Like, a lot of people are going to buy my book. And, at this point, I would say my blog probably had about 12,000 followers or so. And I thought, great, I'm going to sell 12,000 copies of my book without even trying. And of course, it's not quite that simple, because eventually the book became available for pre-order. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do what I've seen other people do. I'm just going to put up a post and say, great, my book is now available for pre-order. Everybody should go buy it. And I thought about that for a second, and I said, well, what do I do? I've known other bloggers who've had books published, and I really like them, and I really like their writing, and they'll put up a post saying, my book is now available for pre-order. Please go buy it. And I'll think, oh, good for them. So the book comes out next spring. All right, I've got time. And then I don't buy it. And then by next spring, either I've moved on, I'm not interested in them anymore, they said something that pissed me off, and I don't follow them anymore, or whatever, or I just forgot. And I thought, okay, I don't want that to happen with my book. I want people who are excited about this right now to buy it right now. So I came up with this plan to use all my social media and all the following that I had built up over, Twitter and Instagram and all the other platforms, and get everybody to buy the book right now. And so I told my followers, we're going to do this thing that I've made up, and I'm calling it an Amazon chart twerk, because I wanted to call it something that was trendy at the time, and twerking was the thing that people were talking about. What we're going to do is everybody who wants to buy the book, don't buy it sometime over the next 9 months between now and when it actually gets released. I want you to buy it next Friday at 12 p.m. And that way, if everybody who says they're going to buy the book actually buys it at the same time, it'll get a much higher Amazon chart ranking. And then people will start to take notice of it. I had no idea if this was going to work or not. But
and Jerry,
yeah.
At this point, remind me again, like, what would you say your kind of total following from your blog, Facebook, et cetera, like, rough number, how many people were kind of with you as you were running this little sales experiment?
I'm going to say like 12 to 15,000 over everything.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
And so I have no idea how many of those people are reading the blog every single day versus how many signed up 6 months ago and forgot about it, and now it goes to their spam folder. So I'm like, let's just see, as long as I've got all these people, and these people I don't know, but these people who say that they're really supportive of me and love my writing and want to, buy something that I've written, let me get them to buy it all at the same time. And so I promoted it relentlessly on my blog and on my Twitter, and I asked my friends to do it too. And amazingly, some of my followers even picked up on it. This woman I had never met before started a Facebook event telling people to buy my book and saying, this is not just about buying a great book by a great writer, which I think it is. I think it's also, about making this writer's dreams come true. And kind of like Mary Laura said about the Olympic athletes, we follow the people because we are interested in the people. We're interested in their stories. And, here was a woman who was pointing that out to me when I didn't even realize it myself, that people would be interested in just, helping me out as a writer and following my story and being a part of my story too, and hopefully getting me a high chart ranking. So when the book came out, when the twerk happened, actually, I should say, on Friday at 12 p.m. when everyone was supposed to order it, for a couple hours, nothing happened, and I was devastated, and I thought, oh, my God, I got all these people to do this, and Amazon is hip to us, and they're not going to change the ranking. And then, amazingly, it did start shooting up the charts. It made it to, number 266, I think, overall. It was number 1 in a bunch of different categories, and it also made this chart that I didn't know existed until then called the Movers and Shakers chart, which is the books that have gotten the highest bounce, which is usually whatever Oprah announced for her book club that day or something like that, or whatever was on the Today Show that morning, and then there's my book in with all these other books, which was amazing. And so, I realized the power of social media really to help me promote stuff, and there's my book cover, and a bunch of people bought it thanks to this crazy little stunt that I pulled. And I also, by the time the book came out, I used everything else in my power to get the word out there. And by that point, just through blogging, I had made a bunch of contacts with other sites, Today Parents and Lifetime Moms. I was blogging regularly for Lifetime Moms. Scary Mommy, who's very influential, she republished a couple of my posts, and something that might get 3,000 shares on my site would get 50,000 shares on her site, which was amazing. And so the day that my book came out, I actually asked her, okay, can I write a new post for you that you could put up on my site, on your site, the day that my book is released, just with a little note at the bottom saying, Jerry's book comes out today, everybody should go buy it. And so she agreed, and she put my post up, and it got me tons of exposure that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I realized almost without trying, I had made friends and influential friends who could help me promote my book. And that was something that the publisher also really appreciated.
So Jerry, one of the things that I love about the slide that you just showed, all the different sort of friends you made online through blogging, Facebook calls your followers friends, and I know that's sort of cheesy, but really the connections that you can make through blogging and through social media, some of them are professional and some of them are more like friendships, but they can do great things for building your exposure, just like you just showed us with Scary Mommy and the Today Show and WordPress. If you're able to book some guest posts or write things that get reblogged or syndicated, you can exponentially grow your readership. Which builds a larger sense of community around what you're doing. But what I like to tell people is you can't just walk up to the Today Show or to anybody. You couldn't just walk up to the woman who runs Scary Mommy and go, hey, guess what? I wrote a book. Can you do a post about it? If she's never heard of you before, because that's weird and not how you talk to people. But the fact that you had developed a relationship over time through blogging, through reading other blogs, through tweeting, Facebook, Instagram, all the things that you do, you were then in a position when the time came for these people to help you out, which is one of the most wonderful things about those relationships. I'll tell you all quickly my little story, which is a little shorter and weirder and not quite as sweet and heartwarming, but Jerry mentioned that people were helping him because they saw he had a dream that he wanted to have come true. I didn't quite come at it from that angle. I had been blogging for a while, for about 3 years, on a little blog called I Miss You When I Blink, which is named after a poem that my child wrote for me, and it's not nearly as profound as the title would make it sound. But I Miss You When I Blink was sort of my testing ground for all the weird, funny humor ideas I had that did not fit into any of my regular work outlets. I usually write serious stuff. I write about books. I write about life. I write in very distinguished publications. But on my blog that I controlled myself, I could do whatever I wanted. So one day, a couple years ago, on I Miss You When I Blink, I thought it would be funny to talk about something that had happened in the publishing world that was all in the news, Penguin Books and Random House had announced that they were going to merge. And all the book nerds in the world were wondering, what are they going to call the company? Penguin Random House Books? And I thought, maybe they should call it Random Penguins. That would be funny. And so I did a blog post on I Miss You When I Blink, and basically what I did was I posted a bunch of weird drawings I made of penguins doing random things, which in my mind, random things for penguins would be things that people do. So they were penguins doing people things, like going to work and trying on hats. And it was just truly one of the weirdest things I had done in a while. And I had so much fun with it, and I got such a response on my blog. So many people were writing in going, more penguins, more penguins. So I said, okay, more penguins. And I ended up spinning them off onto a separate site that I actually called therandompenguins.com and started posting a penguin drawing a day. Started doing that in, I guess it was around November. And for several months I did a penguin every day. And I sort of thought, this has got its own weird little following, but, whatever. And then one day I got a call from someone at the Queen Latifah show, and they said, we found these penguins, and we think they're hysterical. Would you mind if Queen Latifah featured them on her website and also tweeted about them? And I said, of course I would not mind. That's awesome. Shortly after, I got similar emails from a couple of other sites. Go Fug Yourself, which is a fashion blog that, if you don't follow it now because it's hysterical. The Toast, Refinery 29, Saks Fifth Avenue, oddly enough, was doing a little small capsule art collection, and they asked if I would create or have created note cards with the penguins on them. So these weird little penguins suddenly had a bigger and bigger following, and they weren't something I created with a dream in mind to win over the world with penguins. It just sort of started picking up this momentum, and it was all coming from social media. It was coming from the blog. It was coming from Twitter, where I was posting them. And sure enough, before I knew it, I got another phone call from Penguin Random House, thankfully not from their lawyers, but from an editor who said, we'd really like to turn this into a book. And I was surprised and delighted. Again, this was not a dream that I really had, but one of the things that editor said, and just like Jerry, I think there are things we can glean from people, whether we're publishing independently or we're publishing through the old traditional route or whatever. One of the things she said was, we wouldn't have come to you about this book unless we knew you had a following, and we can see that you have a following. And to me, I was like, that's something I need to take back and tell every, emerging writer that I know. And I talk to a lot of emerging writers in my work. So build the following, build the following, build the following. It's a big deal. There's just a few other spots where I've been lucky enough to write or post my penguins, and all of those have built the following and enabled the book to sell. It came out in June, and I even had a teeny tiny little book tour and managed to meet some new friends and sell it to some new people. So I had a really good time with it. But we've talked a lot about blogging so far. I don't want to forget that, whether or not you have a blog, which I know is a time commitment, there are so many easy, free tools you can use to connect with audience. Just off of social media things, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those are the little pictures there, but there's a million other ones. It's not as time-consuming. If you are not someone who currently uses those, I would tell you it's not as time-consuming as you might think. You don't have to do all of it. There are so many different social media platforms right now. Pick one or two that you feel comfortable with, that you feel like you can kind of operate pretty easily. Maybe try to pick a couple where you know your audience hangs out. Tumblr and Instagram were great for me because the penguins are visual, and those are two platforms that lend themselves very well to scrolling through pictures. If you are writing, for example, a book about family or parenting, like Jerry did, Facebook is a great spot to be because most parents are on Facebook. Twitter, everybody's on Twitter. Tumblr is another spot where if you happen to be writing fiction that is for young people, like YA, there are tons of YA authors and readers on Tumblr. There's just a million different ways you can do it, but you don't have to do it all. You also don't have to spend all your time scrolling through these platforms. You can use scheduling tools to write a post and hit a button and have it sent out. There are ways to make it take less time so that it's convenient for you. And then there are also ways that can benefit you, just that can make your life more fun and more interesting. You can follow other people and other publications who do what you do or are interested in what you're interested in. You can share news stories or other content that's developed by other people. It doesn't always have to be an original post by you about something. If you want to do a tweet one morning and you don't have anything original to say, scroll through and look at what other people who are interested in your types of things are saying and retweet one of those things. The main idea is that you're giving people a peek behind the curtain of how your work gets made, and you're letting your voice come through, because there's going to come a time when you'll have something really big to show everybody, and that's your book. Jerry, I've got a couple pictures here of your social media pages if you want to just click through them for us real quick.
Sure. This is my Facebook page. It was very, very simple to set up. I just put up a drawing my kids had done of the family. And the great thing about the Facebook page is sometimes blogging is a little overwhelming, or I'll have an idea for a blog post, but I won't have time to do it, or it'll take a couple hours. And so Facebook is so immediate and so simple. It's just a way to remind people, hey, I'm still here. I know I haven't put up a blog post in a week or two, but here's what I am, here's what I'm thinking right now, and I'll just put up little anecdotes of things that happened in my family. This is one here where my daughter was talking about who she was going to marry someday, and it was kind of funny, and I got a lot of response from people. I also find Facebook to be a great place, and Twitter to be a place to kind of repurpose old blog posts and sort of promote things that have sort of already come and gone in most people's minds. There was a post I'd written called How to Talk to Your Kids About Gay Parents by a Gay Parent, which got me a lot of feedback and a lot of reposts. I think that was the one that was on the Today Show site. And then this thing happened in the news where Michael Sam was drafted into the National Football League and kissed his boyfriend on TV. And a lot of people were talking about it. Well, kids were watching that show. How am I supposed to talk to my kids about two men kissing? And I thought, well, I have a post that's kind of like that, so I'm just going to repurpose it and put it up. And for anyone who wants to know how to talk to your kids about two men kissing, here's my post about it. So I just retitled How to Talk to Your Kids About Gay People by a Gay Person and wrote a new intro to it and put it up again. I didn't have to write a whole new post. And it was a way to get, new juice out of something old that I'd written a long time ago. In terms of Tumblr, like Mary Laura said, it's a lot of younger people on Tumblr. Parents are really on Facebook, and I get most of my engagement through Facebook. But I realized that I could set up a Tumblr page that would automatically copy everything that I did to my blog. And again, it took me maybe 5 minutes to set it up, and it takes absolutely zero maintenance. Every time I put up a post on my blog, it automatically cross-posts it to my Tumblr page. And every once in a while, I'll get an email that I've got a new follower on Tumblr, and I'll go, oh, right, I have a Tumblr. I didn't even remember that. But for the people who are only on Tumblr, that helps reach them.
One of the things that is delightful about social media and is a little different from the real world is that you have equal access to anybody. Take Twitter, for example. I can tweet at, Matt Damon. Actually, he's not on Twitter. But if he were, I would totally be tweeting at him. I can tweet at anybody just like I could tweet.
I love that you know that he's not on Twitter.
I checked. He was once.
You've been following. You check every day, don't you?
I keep checking, just in case. You can tweet to anybody, and you can get in little Twitter conversations with anybody. And so it's a wonderful way to sort of enrich your own skills and career by following people who do what you want to be doing. If they're authors you admire, follow those people wherever they are. It doesn't have to be Twitter. There are hashtags you can follow. If there's a news story or something interesting to you, follow the hashtags about it. See what other people are saying. And there is, to some extent, a passive element in social media. You can watch what other people are saying, listen to what they're saying. Just chime in when you feel comfortable. But what I always tell people is you can't do that at all if you're not there. You've got to have an account on whatever platform you're using. You've got to have a Twitter account. You've got to be on Facebook. You've got to have an Instagram, or you can't chime in and comment. You can't be a part of the conversation unless you're there. There's my little Facebook, Mary Laura Philpott, author. I have my book tour schedule as my cover photo, and a little penguin as my profile. I don't like looking at pictures of my own face, which is why I use penguins as much as I can. There's my Twitter, this little penguin. It just so happens that the day I took the screenshot, I had written a blog post on I Miss You When I Blink called How to Be an Awesome Golf Caddy. And it was, if you read it, it's actually how to be a terrible golf caddy because I tried it once and I was horrible at it. But someone I don't know read it and tweeted it, and so I retweeted her, and that's what's right there. And there's my Instagram, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a wonderful platform if you're very visual, which my work is. And here's an example, just coming from sort of my bookstore world, putting my other hat on for a minute. I went to a reading the other night of an author, a Canadian author named Bradley Sommer, and he wrote a hysterical novel called Fishbowl that is just fantastic. And so it was my night off. I wasn't actually working, but I went to his reading. And when it was over, I tweeted that hearing him read from that book reminded me that it was not just funny, but it's also structurally brilliant. And I linked to an article about it. And if you see down there at the bottom, he tweeted back. And he said, "Thank you. It was great to meet you. And I love your penguin." That's the kind of thing that can happen on Twitter. And that couldn't happen in real life. Like, I couldn't just run up to him at the book thing and go, "Hey, you're awesome and brilliant." But that can happen on Twitter. It enables some interactions that are really cool. And speaking of interactions that are really cool, this goes back to actually when I first met Jerry. We met at a blogging conference. And I heard him tell the story, a longer story of what he told us this morning about his sister-in-law donating an egg. And he had a line, "She gave us half the genetic material for our children, and we gave her a cake." And just, it's not as funny when I deliver that line, but when Jerry did it, I fell out of my chair. And so I tweeted that line. And I tagged him, and I used the hashtag of the conference where we were. And then there's another example of the day that my book was coming out. Jerry tweeted about it and tagged me. So my followers got to see me interacting with and promoting Jerry. His followers got to see him interacting with and promoting me, and we've sort of cross-pollinated with groups of people who follow us. Just to kind of wrap us up, and before we turn over to questions, general advice for social media, or anytime you're discussing your work online, I always say it's kind of like a cocktail party. You don't want to be that guy who walks in the front door and you're just yelling about yourself, because nobody wants to stand next to that guy at a party. So promote yourself sometimes, but also spend a lot of time not promoting yourself, talking about things that are interesting to you, or promoting other people's work, or just joining conversations on topics that you enjoy. Most of all, be yourself. Have fun with it. It really is fun. It doesn't have to be stressful. A minimal amount of effort can make a really big difference in building a platform. And with that said, I guess I'll turn it over to Lauren for questions.
Yes. So we do have some questions, but I also want to jump back to the point you made earlier, is that, you can't join in conversations if you don't have a Twitter handle or a Facebook account. But the other thing is that if I am a book lover and I go and I read this book, I can't tag you on Twitter when I want to say how much I loved it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. That is true for book fans. It is also true for bookstores. And being the social media director at an indie bookstore, it drives me nuts when I want to promote a book that I love, that I've got sitting there on my shelf, and I want to tweet, "Look at the brand new book we got in today. It's such and such by so-and-so." And I go to look for that author's Twitter handle, and there's not one. It's like, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to promote you. Put yourself out there. Most of them do now, but there are always a few who are just like, "No, I don't do that. And I can't help you if you're not out there." So thank you for making
And the
that
flip side of that, I think, is, don't you want to know what people are saying about you? Like if
Yeah.
someone's going to write something nice about your book, wouldn't you like it better if they tagged you and you actually saw their tweet, rather than it just going unnoticed?
Totally.
Or if someone's going to write something mean, I want to know that too, so I can write back.
Well, and it's just one more way for you to connect with your reader on that personal level. Like if you get that great tweet and they love your book, that reader is really going to appreciate hearing from you.
Mhm.
Every time.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so a couple questions we have. I guess one of the first ones is, and it's kind of simple, and I'm sure you guys get it all the time, but how often should I blog?
Jerry, how often, in the heyday when you were promoting and leading up to your book, how often do you think you posted a blog post?
My ideal was to do 2 posts a week, and I did 2 different kinds of posts. One was sort of a longer essay post, which was like 600 to 1,200 words at the longest. And then the shorter ones were ones to just kind of remind people that I was there, which was just, a little quote from my kid or something funny that happened that day. This little anecdotal post.
You're a lot more. You're more prolific than I am. I've probably on my main blog, which is I Miss You When I Blink, maybe over the past year I averaged 2 posts a month. But then there's the little Tumblr that I spun off with the penguins. And that one I can ratchet up or down depending on how much promotion I'm doing or how much attention I want on it. Leading up to publication of the book, I was probably putting a penguin out there every day, or if not an actual new penguin drawing, something about book tour. Like, look, here's a picture of my suitcase all packed up with my little stuffed penguin and my drawing pad and all my other things. My penguin on a stick. Things like that. So you can kind of, I guess the answer is you can modulate that however you want to, but something, be posting something sometime. Something at all is better than silence.
Okay, so then a follow-up question is, and maybe you guys, just give best opinions on this one, I guess, because both of you have blogs that focus on different areas, but how might your approach to a blog be different if you're a novelist, if your main art is fiction, and so what you're writing on your blog may not really correlate to your work in the same way?
That is a fantastic question, and actually, Jerry, when I met you at that conference last spring, someone came up to me and asked me that same question, and having looked at a lot of blogs by fiction writers, I would say you certainly don't need to be giving away your fiction on your blog. Obviously, you're saving that up for your novel, so don't feel like you need to be writing mini fictional posts unless that's just something you do and that's your thing. People are happy just to get a little glimpse at who you are, whether you choose to make your blog about a little something about your personal life. I know a novelist named Heather Clay who has a blog about her chickens who live in her backyard, and it's just like, these are Heather's chickens and some things she's doing out in her yard, and helps me get to know her a little bit. Or if you want to keep it professional, it can be things, if you're a novelist, other fiction that you've read that you've enjoyed, or what are your writing habits every day. Or you can make it super, super hyper specific, like here are the things that are on my desk each morning when I start writing. That can be your quirky little thing. But whatever it is and however you're comfortable sharing, whatever level you're comfortable sharing, basically you're just giving people a look at who you are.
Yeah, and I would say if that's what you're doing, look at the fiction authors that you admire and go find their blogs and see what kind of stuff they're blogging about, because that's how they're engaging with their readers. And there are so many ways that you can, like Mary Laura said, you can review your favorite books or write about your writing habits. There's so many writing blogs out there that obviously your blog should be, if your blog is about your fiction writing or you want to draw people's attention to your fiction writing, don't write about your parenting skills, like I do. That's my thing because I'm writing about, my parenting is my book too. So yeah, tailor it towards your audience.
Great. Okay, so taking a step back on the blog front, maybe how do you even start? Where do you start? Do you find the platform first? Do you find your niche first? Sometimes I feel like bloggers kind of find their audience just by kind of doing it. Kind of what are your best tips and tricks or suggestions or life experiences?
I guess that finding your way toward, it really depends on where you are in your writing career. For me, the creation of my blog was a much needed creative outlet because the work that earned me my money was serious, and I needed an outlet for my humor writing. And I created my blog and I only had like 2 followers in the beginning, but I sort of found my way to my comedic voice that way. So for me, it started with a voice that needed out. Platform-wise, I don't know if I should promote certain platforms. There are a million out there. I will say WordPress is fantastically easy to use. I have taught myself how to do things with WordPress without anyone actually showing me what to do. Tumblr, which I tend to talk about Tumblr like it's a social media tool, but it actually is a pretty robust blogging platform. You can do a lot with it, a lot of great themes, and both of those have themes you can use for free, so you're not spending any money creating your blog. Anything you'd add there, Jerry?
Yeah, my advice if you're thinking about starting blogging is just start. Just go to WordPress or Blogger or whatever your platform of choice is, and sign up for a blog, and you can write a post, and your first post can be, hey, it's my first post, yay! And it doesn't matter. Like Mary Laura said, you're free to experiment on your blog. And the great thing about blogging is, as you're experimenting and trying things out and finding your voice, those posts that maybe don't work or that were kind of random or off topic or whatever are just going to get buried down at the bottom of your blog anyway. No one's going to read those first and say, oh, I don't like this blog. The posts that are going to rise to the top are the posts that get a lot of attention and resonate with people and keep getting shared. And I have some posts that might be a couple years old, but every once in a while somebody will pick up on them and they'll get shared again. And, that's a post that'll draw people to my blog, or just whatever my newest post is. No one's going to go back and find the post from 5 years ago that I wrote on a really off-random day and judge me by that. So, have your off-random day online. Who cares? And, one day you'll strike gold.
Yeah. Blogging and social media really, in some ways, are the ultimate indie publishing. You are in control of what you say and when and what it looks like, and it is a very easy way to help find your voice and also find your audience and kind of find your groove and figure out what works. It's a great testing ground for whatever it is you're going to invest in doing later. Great.
Yeah, and you can't ruin yourself through bad blogging. You can only help yourself through good blogging. You either get supported by a post or ignored.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I guess kind of a follow-up question to that is, let's say I really want to start getting my name out there as an author or as a small publisher. Do I have to spend money on social to use it effectively?
You don't have to. You can. It took me a while of getting my feet under me a little bit before I felt comfortable promoting a post, like, throwing $5 at a Facebook post, because I had written a blog post and I wanted to make sure it actually showed up in people's news feeds, which, thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, for making links impossible to see on Facebook. But if you put a little money behind them, they're easier to see. I don't always do it. Sometimes I do. You certainly do not have to. It's not a make or break kind of thing, but it can lift your visibility a little bit.
Yeah, I've never paid a dime to promote anything of mine. I've done it all organically. I've certainly considered it many times, and it probably is a way to expand your audience, but you don't need to do it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So then I guess the other question we seem to be getting is, how do I reach people on social platforms who are not already my friends?
You follow them. Go back to the cocktail party analogy. If you walked into a party at somebody's house, you wouldn't just start yelling into space about, today I walked my dog and now I'm going to eat some of those mini corn dogs and they're going to be great. You would walk up to a conversation already in progress. You would stand there quietly for a little while and listen. And when you were ready to chime in and there was a moment, you would chime in. But first you'd have to be there following their conversation. So same thing online. Follow other people. Find blogs you like, click to get on their email list or follow them in whatever platform. Once you're following people for a while, you can then comment on their blogs, or you can comment on their posts, or you can tweet back at them or whatever. Then they know you're there, and they'll appreciate your comments and maybe go, oh, who's that Jerry guy? I'm going to click over and see where that's coming from, and then they might follow you. It's an organic process, and it does take time, but it's very similar to how you make friends in real life. You just got to approach people.
Yeah, and definitely compliment people. If I get a compliment from somebody, hey, I loved your post today, I'll almost always follow them back. Whereas if somebody just tweets at me and says, hey, check out my new blog post and a link.
Yeah, no.
That
is not the way to do it.
Yeah, no. But Yeah, even if they haven't read my blog ever, they could just say, I love your blog. And I'll be like, oh, you're nice. I'm going to follow you. Or let me see what you have to say.
Yeah. Again, very similar to real-life social manners. I like your shoes.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, you're safe. I like you.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so then I guess maybe we're kind of wrapping up. So in case any of you in the audience have any questions you would like to throw out to our two speakers today, again, please feel free to use that question and answer box at the bottom of your screen. And if you watch this later and something comes to you, please feel free to email us, which I'm going to push on the slide right now. It's just some of our contact information, and we can always forward those on to our speakers. Also, though, if you are still on here now and we're not getting to some of your questions, we will be able to get back to you afterwards, so that's always an option. But mostly, we just want to say thank you for joining us, and we really hope that this just imparted some of this wonderful knowledge on how promoting your title and you as an author can both be something that's easy and enriching. And we just hope that it's something that you look into and come back to this blog post if you have any questions, and reach out to us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and both to Jerry and Mary Laura. And all of us are here and just want to be a resource to you. And so we hope that this can be put into good practice. So thank you again. Both to Jerry and Mary Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And hopefully we will hear from you all soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.